This is Tales from the Pros, where business leaders and influencers share their stories of inspiration, struggles, and successes. And I'm your host, Michael Giorgio. Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Pros, and this is Michael Giorgio, your host and co-founder of Imaginovation. My wonderful guest with me here today is the CEO of Truly and the CEO of Phlywheel. She is an executive level digital marketing professional with over 20 years of progressive experience. She specializes in relationship and inbound marketing with a passion for data-driven strategy and has over 20 years of research and analytics experience using both quantitative and qualitative data. I'm actually really interested in her story. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes here, but essentially, this amazing woman is also the best-selling author of The Power of Social Networking and Crown Business, professional international speaker, and was recognized as a woman to watch in Entrepreneur magazine in 2013, woman-led startups to watch in Fast Company in 2011, and the most influential woman in technology in Fast Company in 2009. Please welcome the amazing Tara Hunt, or I would say Tara. I keep saying Tara, but that's okay.
That's A-okay. I'm so used to it. Thank you for having me
know.
on this, Michael, and thank you for that introduction. Now I have a lot to live up to.
Oh yeah. Well, I listened. Tara, I've read so much great about you, and you have. I think the research I've done on you and just learning about you and watching your videos, reading your content, you have a strong influence in what you do, and it seems like you're very passionate. And I can see that when I watch YouTube videos. You have so much passion. You know what you're doing. You're not just. I've seen a lot of stuff on all these platforms where people. It's a lot of it is not. I don't want to say made up, but it's not. It's not coming from a lot of experience. But with you, I can see that you have so much passion, experience, enjoying what you're doing, and it comes across that way. So I just want to let you know that. So,
well, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's content. When you're a content creator, and a lot of people are content creators, it takes a lot of time to do content right. So you'll find a lot of content creators that do great content, but they're just doing content. And then you'll find a lot of people who are working on projects and they just don't have time to do the content. So they don't speak about it a lot. And it's definitely it's great to hear that from you, because I try to balance the two as much as possible. So to varying degrees of success, I guess.
Yeah. It's definitely, there are a lot of people in your space, that are content creators, and I'm sure we're all sick of this word influencers. I know we keep hearing it, and there's all these different buzzwords that come out, right? There's always a buzzword. Entrepreneur, that's been out for how long now? Probably over 10 years. It's been in trend. And then influencers, and now people are saying, micro influence. I mean, what's next? I don't know what the heck is next.
Nano influencers.
I'm sure COVID will influence something else. We'll come up with another tag word, trendy word of what people are going to call themselves. But anyways, Tara, I'm really honored that you're here. Thank you so much. I know you're doing a lot of different things, and I want to talk about your successful businesses, your new ventures, your story. As you know, I'm a fan of storytelling. I know you are as well. And I definitely want to talk about the power of storytelling and talk about the power of a good content marketing strategy, and targeting the right audience and all that good stuff. So just to kind of kick things off, I know you do have a good story behind where you came from, and I know we talked a little bit before that you are in Toronto, but Tara, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today? What was were you always did you always have a passion for marketing, or how did you get to this point that you are today?
I've heard it a million times, and quite often I roll my eyes when I hear follow your gut, right? Because it's a really it's a precarious position to be in, because it's not a real thing. Intuition, I guess, is what we're talking about when it's following your gut. But even then, I've seen a lot of people following that intuition and following it basically down a bad path sort of thing. But I can say that like, I feel like my whole career has been stumbling in mostly right directions by like just seeing something and feeling something and recognizing, oh, this is good. This is where I need to go. And then just sort of trusting that instinct. So, I, years ago, I'm a, Canadian. I was, living in Toronto. And I just, like, I found out about this blogging thing and I started blogging. And then I was really passionate in advocating for this idea of like brands creating relationships through these digital channels. There wasn't even social yet. And then I got like headhunted basically down to San Francisco. And I followed that. Like, I just dropped everything in my life and just jumped on a plane and moved down to San Francisco. Of course, I, went through the proper channels to get my work visa and stuff. But, like, but then I got there and I remember feeling like, oh, damn, what did I do? Have I ruined everything? Like, why did I just like do that? But then that worked out really well. I mean, that took me to new levels of like insights and meeting really cool new people that taught me new things and having experiences that took me to the next level. And then I got a book deal, which was like, why would anybody, like, I mean, I knew I had blog readers, but why would anybody want to, like, does myself written a book?
Wow.
I guess I was about to find out, and I started being asked to speak. I was scared. Like, can I swear on your podcast or no?
Little ones. Yeah.
I was scared shitless. Like, when I started speaking, I remember being backstage at one of my first talks. They had hired me as a keynote. I'd been on a few panels before then.
Wow.
And
which keynote was it?
it was actually, they had brought me back to Toronto. It was for Mesh Conference, I think it was called. It was backstage, and all of a sudden I could just feel like everything bubbling up inside of me. And I had to run to the bathroom, and I puked. Because I was like, and then I had to go up and I had to perform. I mean, basically on stage, I was so nervous. But that after a while got easier. And then just like at every stage, there was like something that, like, how you know it when you see it and you're like, oh, that's that thing. And just, I don't know what it is in me that I looked at things and said, I'm going to follow that with complete faith. I guess that's what happens in religion. So this is, maybe this has been my religion in a way.
Yeah.
I just kept following it. And sometimes, I mean, I can't say that everything that I've done has led to great success or been, a great decision. But yeah, like a little small town Alberta girl, from, like, I wouldn't have even been able to dream this up if somebody asked me when I was graduating from high school, like, where I saw myself in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, or whatever.
It's such a big question to ask that too.
Like, along the way, it was not planned. It was like, wow, this looks interesting. And I just followed it. So, I mean, I guess, and that's terrible advice to give to people too, I think, because they'll be like, follow your instinct. Well, sometimes that's, will take you in the wrong direction. And what does that mean? But, when you talk about the videos that you see sometimes on these social platforms, I think a lot of times what we do see is that there are people who see somebody else's, like, you see somebody else succeeding because they followed that instinct, and that person that they admire, that they want to, replicate, I guess.
Right.
That person took a chance because instinctually they saw something that was going to be like really interesting for them, and they didn't do it for the wrong reasons. Usually, like, anytime I followed my instincts, it was like, I feel this like passion for it. I feel this is the right thing to do, not, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money or I'm going to get a bunch of followers or whatever. It's not that.
Right.
But I think like the first mover the person who's influencing all of these up and coming content creators um, follow their gut, and because of that, people follow them. But then there's a whole bunch of other people that say, "Oh, that I want to be that person." It's not the same thing. That's not following your gut. That's following the money or following the likes or
Right.
whatever it
Yeah,
is.
no, I know what you mean.
So it comes across that way then too, right?
Yeah. And did you, so, I mean, we all know that you have, you had this, I can see it in your face, your eyes, that you love content, you love marketing, you love digital, you have all these passions for it. I could tell from your content, you love talking about audiences, how to target the right audience at the right time with all these different tools and strategies, tactics. But, before all that, when you started Truly, how did Truly come about? Was it something, was it just you, or did you have a partner? Did you have this idea to start this agency, or was it just like, you know what, I'm just
So
gonna
truly,
kick this
yeah,
off?
truly wasn't my first rodeo, I guess, or my
Mhm.
first project, or where I started something. I had done many companies before, and in fact, here is a like kind of an example of me kind of well, I mean, I wasn't ignoring my gut, but I wanted to actually find a job. I was like, I'm through with this entrepreneurship thing. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm
It's
tired.
tough. Yeah.
I'm in my mid 40s, and there's absolutely like no way that I'm going to continue to like run this hamster wheel. And so I had actually I'd started my video series. And it was really in order to be like hired by somebody. And instead, I kept attracting would be clients. And there were enough kind of cool projects that came along that I was like, I guess I'll do this. I'll do it as a freelance thing for a little while. And at the time, I was talking to my accountant who was like, you need to incorporate. I was like, oh, but I don't want to do another business. And he said, well, even if you don't go forward with it, it's still a good way, like tax wise, for you to operate. So I incorporated, and the entire time I would be, even I said to my clients, I was like, I'm just doing this until I can find a job. Next thing you know, I was so busy, I had to hire somebody. I got on that, like, I was in that part of the, growth of a business where you're like, either I turn away the business or I hire somebody to help me with the business. And I ended up going down the, okay, I'll hire somebody. And then I hired several people. And then I was signing a lease on an office. And then I was putting like benefits plans, like
Mm,
all sorts of things together.
yeah.
And here I am 4.5 years later. And there was for a joke for a long time, it was my accidental agency because I really just, it wasn't what I wanted to do. But I just kept saying, okay, well, universe, you keep telling me that this is what I need to do. And it's worked out so far. We've had bumps in the road, everybody has.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like 4.5 years later, I have an amazing team of people who work with me, that I get to like pay even during a COVID-19 like shutdown. They're,
Yeah.
we haven't cut back because we were so busy. So yeah, like yeah, and yeah, that's the evolution of Truly, for sure.
That's great. We have, I'll tell you, from listening to that story, we have a lot of similarities because 9 years ago, when my brother-in-law and I started Imagine Ovation in 2011, the economy wasn't good, and
Mm.
it started almost, I want to say by accident, but we didn't know that it was going to take off. We had no idea. He was working another job. I was unemployed after my master's degree. I was doing it just to say, let me get some experience. I couldn't get hired. It was at least for a job that I wanted. And then the third, we were posting on Craigslist all over the country. I got banned like 4 times. I found other ways to get on there. Didn't give up. Was very had a lot of resilience, perseverance. Just kept going. And yeah, it just worked out. The third week we closed for at least for us at that time, it was a lot of money. We're like, um, let's let's do this. This might be something cool to pursue. So it was a
Yeah.
blessing in disguise the way it happened. We didn't know it was actually gonna be successful, but we've had our bumps in the road. But that's a different story.
What were you posting to Craigslist? I'm very curious. Like that your
Oh,
services or
yeah. So what I would do is I would
ah,
create. Yep. So I knew like the basics of Photoshop. I was not a designer by all means, but I knew I did. I took some classes in college, so I would do some basic, create some basic designs like a banner ad. Put the banner ad of our services, web design, web development, web
right.
applications, mobile, all that stuff, and then put that on there with our logo. Have a little story, and then post it on different cities. I would post to hundreds of cities around the country. And then they said you're posting too much, so they banned me. I created another email with different. I changed all the words, different images, everything. I did that numerous times, and it got us business. We had no money. I mean, we started from nothing.
Ah, that's
So
just so like it's there's ingenuity in there. You're a true entrepreneur. That's very
yeah,
interesting. I never thought of
but
using Craigslist, but yeah, that's cool.
well, you probably don't want to use it now. Not with a good clientele. We got some crazies.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, we got some crazies, but yeah. Anyways, that's a different story. But no, this is cool. I mean, you definitely have a lot in common, and you know, I there was a few pieces of content, Tara, that I saw on your YouTube, and even written posts as well in regards to storytelling. And I like how you talk about finding your story, tuning into it, and turning your values into action. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so the storytelling series like came actually a little bit out of frustration because so many people do talk about storytelling, like and a lot of people talk about storytelling in this very kind of from the point of view of the storyteller. So so you get like a lot of kind of advertising story perspective, those ads that make people cry or whatever. But when I think of storytelling, I think of it in a very different way. I think of like my series, I don't tell stories necessarily, maybe there's stories embedded within them, but I think of storytelling more of like how you connect with your audience, right?
There's different
So,
types. Yep, you're right.
yeah, the best stories I find are stories that you read and you see yourself in some way, shape, or form, right? Like either you see yourself as I've seen this happen, and I empathize with the characters, or you read the story and you're like, oh my God, that was me or that is me. And so I need to keep reading to find out how my story ends. And I've always been a huge fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. Are you familiar with?
I've heard of it, but I can't, yeah, I can't quote any of their content or anything. But I do,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he I think in the 60s is when he coined the term the hero's journey, and he talks about all great stories like are the similar to what you'd see in like Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings or whatever. Like this hero starts out normal life. There's a call to action. He refuses that call. He or she refuses that call. Then something happens that he or she cannot ignore. He's taken that person. The hero is taken over the threshold. Goes through a series of battles. Like has to win those battles until there's like the final big battle, and then there's like a death of sorts. So it's either a death of an idea, or letting go, or an actual death. Of the hero, and then they're reborn, and they're reborn into a new normal. And that's a very simplification of this journey. But if you take a look at any story in the history that's connected with people, it almost always follows this very same arc. And what I learned about the hero's journey many years ago, it's not that you're following some like hero out there that is just sort of this floating separate from the audience, but everybody needs to, that's why the hero starts in the normal, because everybody needs to relate to the hero. So when you are telling a
True.
story, it should always be that your viewer, your audience needs to be the hero, not you. You're not telling your story. Even those people that will tell a story and you're like, wow, what a brave story, you like, if it's a story that you're going to connect with, it's because you see yourself in that hero's journey 100%. So
I
when
love it.
I talk in that story series, that's basically like what I'm talking about is it's not, yeah, it needs to be like that whole personal, authentic, da, 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 da. You're not making something up. But that's like, I don't know if you've heard of Brené Brown or seen her stuff, but like the whole idea of vulnerability, that's one of the ways that you can tell your story in a way that will connect deeply with the person who is observing that story. So that's why stories are so powerful, is that people get to be vulnerable, and in that
Yeah.
vulnerability others can connect with them because they feel vulnerable in the same ways.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I just made a LinkedIn post today. Actually, I think I tagged you in the post, but yeah, I made a LinkedIn post today in regards to a lot of us marketers. I feel like we tend to fall into this mindset sometimes when you're in your day to day, you're in the day to day grind, and you see a lot of other companies that are branding themselves, especially competition, right? We'll always have competition, and when we see someone doing it better, sometimes not all of us, but some of us, we end up falling into this trap where we're comparing ourselves to others, and that I feel is really a thief of joy. Comparison is a thief of joy, and a thief of success. And I love how you talk about vulnerability, because when when you put out content, especially either for yourself or your clients, let's just say for your clients, uh, you have to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
because it takes a lot to put something out there for the world to see, to do it the right way to make it resonate with your audience and to connect with their audience or your audience through stories and through all these different things. You have to be vulnerable. That's
Yeah.
a big element of it. So I put that on the post today. It's
Okay.
funny how you said that. I'm
Oh,
like, wow, that's
I'll have
cool.
to go
It's so
check it
cool. But
out.
yeah, but I love how you said that. I think it's so true. And Tara, I also love what you talked about in regards to when you are storytelling. And I know that's also a big word, but when you use that, when you incorporate that into a strategy, let's just say for your clients, or even branding your own businesses, I like how you talk about we do it for others. It's not about ourselves.
Mhm.
And I've talked to so many people on this podcast, successful marketers and business people. They all have a very similar element in regards to always being about other people. And I love how you mentioned that. And that's probably a part of your success. It's very selfless. It's not all about you. You're trying to help others.
Right.
You're providing value to others. So that's also, yeah. But I just love how I wanted to recognize you for that.
Well,
I think
and
it's
it's
great.
also like, just to clarify, we're all selfish, but we should be selfish
Yeah.
in the right way. Like, um, one of my favorite books of all time is The Origins of Virtue. It's by Matt Ridley. I loved it so much. Actually, I named one of my dogs after him. um, but he's talking about like the that people actually uh, we're all selfish, but if directed in the right way, like the selfishness becomes about helping others, because there's a bit of a in the back of our minds, like if we help others, then when we need help, we'll get help. There's a bit of that whole virtue signaling stuff, right? Of course, that's positive pressure towards that rising tide brings up all boats idea. So if we're making sure that what we're doing connects with others and helps inspire others. But I love that you talked about looking to the competitors and feeling, bad. Well, don't. Like, anybody that gets joy in somebody else's demise or feels jealous of their success, like, you just have to step back, because
Yeah.
that, like, we are like, if there's nothing we haven't learned during COVID-19, we are truly all in this together.
Oh
There is
yeah.
enough space in this world for every one of us, every brand. Like, monopolies aren't supposed to happen anyways. Like, it's actually against the rules. Yeah, especially in a
Mm.
capitalist society, we need to make space for everybody to succeed. Um, and so that's a really important lesson. I will have
Mm.
to check out the post.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in regards to talking about posts and content, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but when you in that video on YouTube that you post about turning your values into action, can you talk a little more about that? I love what you said. I think it would be good for people to know.
So you're making me go back into my content database in my head. But I do believe what I meant in that is
Sum it
like
up.
is living your values, right? So no matter what you're doing. So I think of, for instance, we're seeing this right now with Black Lives Matter and all these brands who are like, we believe Black Lives Matter, but they don't actually do anything to demonstrate that they believe that Black Lives Matter. And of course, this is like biting them in the butts.
Right.
So like they don't have any Black representation on their boards. They don't have Black people at their senior levels. They haven't, you know, they haven't examined their policies and their organizations, that sort of thing. They
Hmm.
haven't been proactive on hiring. Yeah, great. You put out like an Instagram post, but that's not living your values. That's just speaking to something. And I think we are living in a day and age that is like it is starkly clear when people are performing their values, not actually living their values. So that's a big part of it, and I think it's very important for brands. There's been study after study after study that millennials and the new zennials, or whatever we call the next Gen Y, Gen Z, um, like
Yeah.
that whole that the younger audiences coming up are that they buy with their beliefs. If they don't see a brand acting um, like in step with what they believe, they are going to leave and not be loyal to that brand. So all that money you might put into marketing that makes you seem, amazing, is going to go poof. You're not going, no matter, no, like that's not authentic storytelling. If we want to go back to that,
It's true.
it's
Yeah, you're right.
pantomime.
Yeah, we believe in brands that we buy brands that we believe in. It's so true. I love that. I need to quote that out after this. I love it. You're dropping a lot of jewels here, Tara. This is
Boom,
good.
boom.
And when you are creating a content plan or strategy for your clients, do you have some I hate saying the word tips, but what would you consider an effective content strategy?
Well, I mean, we always start with making sure that we understand exactly what keeps an audience up at night. Probably a good framework to use if you just want to be like very, very like tip, like this is instant tip, is like a jobs to be done framework. Do you know that framework?
No, no, I
So
don't.
the idea behind jobs to be done is that you're not selling a product or a service or something. Your people that are looking for you, your customers, your potential customers, have a job that needs to be done. Now, they're not looking for a specific thing, they're looking for a solution to their problem, right? So in your case, when you were starting out and doing web banners, they, your customers would have been looking on Craigslist to have um, somebody make ads that help them grow their business. So their job to be done was like growing their business, and you were like a means to that end, right?
Mm,
So, when it comes to thinking about your customer, you shouldn't think about like we're the best of this. You should be always thinking about like speaking directly to what that job to be done is. And that's why like ads that are like, when you come across an ad where it asks you a question like, oh, are you tired of your inbox being filled with spam or whatever? And you're like, yes, I am so tired of it. Click,
mm,
click, right? As soon as they speak to, content that speaks to where somebody is at, like on that spectrum of their job to be done, is content that is going to resonate. And so it's important to create content that resonates. Here's an example I love to talk about all the time. So when we went to go sign our lease on our offices a bunch of years back, my real estate broker was like, "You need to get a lawyer to look at the lease." I was like, "What? I don't want to spend money on a lawyer. I've signed a million leases. What, you know?"
Yeah.
So I Googled, "Do I need a lawyer to like sign a commercial lease?" And there was a post that went right at the top of my results. It was a LinkedIn post that said, "Do you really need a lawyer to like help you with your commercial lease?" It was like almost exactly what I Googled. So of course I clicked on that,
Mm,
put that post, read the post. Basically the post said, yeah, I mean, it's always helpful, but here are some ways in which you can, get through doing this yourself, things you should look out for. And it was written by a lawyer who does commercial real estate. Great. I went back to my commercial, like my real estate agent, and I was like, I'm fine. And then I got the lease. The lease was like 75 pages long. And then
mm.
I was like, and I broke down. I was like, oh man, I do need somebody. And guess where I went back to? I went back to that post. It was in my history in my browser, clicked on it. I looked, the lawyer was here in Toronto, because Google's good at, featuring
For
more local
local. Yep.
content. And I reached out to her and I hired her like on the spot
Yeah.
because she didn't give me a hard sell in that post. She created content that exactly spoke to my job to be done at that point. And it like, even though I didn't buy right away, like but I trusted her now. She created this amazing, she showed that she knew what she was talking about. And so when I got that mega thick lease, I was like, oh, I do need help after all. I knew exactly where to go at that point. And I think everybody that does a content strategy needs to get into the shoes of those customers who are Googling or asking around for that thing that they need to
Right.
solve. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be directly looking for a lawyer or directly looking for that iPhone case or whatever it is that they're looking for.
Hmm.
They're looking for something, they're looking to protect their iPhone, or they're looking to alleviate any sort of issues that they could have down the pipe with their lease. So that would be my focus, is focus on their jobs to be done and answer those in your content.
And in terms of the quantity of content that a company or a brand, small business, large company, whoever it may be, is trying to put out, do you think that would you recommend a number of pieces of content, of blogs, let's just say, per week to start writing? I know for us in our company, we do about one post a week,
Right.
2,000 words minimum. We ensure that with a lot of the research that we do, we try to make it resonate with our audience and the intention of the audience and things like that. But
Yeah, there's a million factors at play. I am I'm usually bullish on like more content is better. And part of that is because like HubSpot and various different firms that have studied this have shown that more frequent content drives better like lead generation results. However, I also know of many, many examples where um, small businesses have written some really just amazing, like relatable, useful,
mhm,
interesting content pieces, and they do it maybe like once a quarter, but the content resonates so deeply and is so timely and is so connected to their customers, like jobs to be done, that they end up just, I'm like the lawyer, her that post was old. It was not new. it was like 2 years old. And
Right.
to this day, when you're in Toronto and you Google it, it's at the top of that result. So that one post, I don't even know if she's written other posts since then, but that post,
You just realizing that post for all her leads. Hey, it
right?
happens. Yeah.
So if you I mean, it's you've heard it a million times before, it's about quality and not quantity. However, I mean, search engines do tend to uh, index and reward sites where posting is more frequent and fresh.
More consistent.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think she was lucky because she had posted on LinkedIn, which is very, there's a lot of fresh content coming out of LinkedIn in general. Like Medium would be the same way. Although I'm kind of like, I go back and forth on posting on these third party platforms versus your site, because you kind of just want people to be driven to your site
Right.
at the end of the day. But yeah, like, that's my non-answer answer.
But it's
So
also hard to create thought leadership with just your website. That's why you, as a marketing agency, right? You probably write for your clients on Fast Company, on Forbes, to get their recognition up, to get them out there to their audiences, not just their own website. So it's kind of both, I'm assuming.
yeah, I mean, we focus more on building content on their site, and then we
Okay.
would work with their PR agency usually on how we could uh, some of the content that we create also pitch to these other platforms for sure. So, but I do like to also raise the the search ranking of their core site as well,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
it's a balance.
And yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we hit the spot with a lot of his consistency. So it's quantity, I think, is important to a certain extent, but quality we know is very important. You need to ensure that the quality of content is very
Yeah.
high. That resonates with the audience, and the targeting factor, I think, is incredibly important. But in regards to social media, I know you're big on social media. You're on all these platforms. I mean, Tara, you have what on your LinkedIn? I think over 220,000 connections or followers, which is I mean, it's amazing. I one day maybe I'll get there in like 10 years. But
It's
and
worthless. It's worthless, let me tell you.
oh,
Not.
really? Is it not giving you guys leads? The connections you have, or the content you're posting on LinkedIn?
I will
Or
take it back and
what's
say,
been effective for you on social media? What's worked for you and your company and your clients? What's been
so
good?
I will take back that it's worthless because there the fact that people follow me and there's attention there, and there's like human beings that like at some point I connected with on some level, so they wanted to hit that follow, is amazing, and I thank everybody who has ever done that. The worthless part is that these all of these platforms control algorithms. So my numbers of followers have steadily gone up, but my engagement has steadily has been pretty flatlined.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because of the quality of the content, although maybe that, I don't know, maybe I'm fooling myself, but it's also a lot. I just hear this across the board. These platforms are noisier, their algorithms like change all the time.
Very
um
saturated. Yeah.
yeah, and so I always make the joke, like, if you want to do well on LinkedIn, you just talk about LinkedIn. And those posts just do so well, funny
They
enough.
do very well. I've noticed
Yeah,
that too. And I've interviewed many people on the show that are LinkedIn quote unquote influent.
really,
Yeah,
really
yeah, you
good.
know what I mean. But they're heavily promoting on LinkedIn. There was I was interviewing a guy a few weeks ago, and he was wearing. I mean, it was a beautiful interview. It was, the guy's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He's so good. But he's like, listen, I'm wearing the hat. He had a LinkedIn hat, LinkedIn shirt. He was doing very well for himself. That's great. But all he posted was a lot about LinkedIn and all that stuff. But it was also, I mean, he had a lot of amazing insight and how to provide value and generate leads through LinkedIn. So it was very valuable, but it's
Yeah.
not something I don't want to dedicate my whole life to that. I have a lot more things
No.
I want to do, you know.
Well, yeah, and it's
But
like I am not ever going to be a shill for those companies. So, you know, I like to think that my posts are about, and I go off of real questions that real people ask me, or if I've like actually discovered something through working with a client that I should talk about, right? Like I won't give up the client secrets, but if something is happening where I'm like, oh, I bet more people would benefit from me talking about this, I'm not going to go on and be like, here's how to make a lot of money with LinkedIn or Facebook ads or what. That's not my shtick, and I would rather not have the attention. And just like, well, the thing is like 100 strong views or listens from people that are really engaged
That's
is
yeah.
worth way more than 100,000 from like people who just want to become LinkedIn influencers.
Yeah,
It's
we have
it's
to
like
measure
just
the
a little,
right metrics, metrics and impact on
uh,
on these social videos and posts that we're making. I think what do they call it? Vanity metrics? So a lot of the
oh
vanity
yeah,
metrics, right? It's I had a quick little story. Is I have a friend of mine, and she's a model, and or she does modeling on the side, and she's all about Instagram. Not no, she's not on LinkedIn. Always she's on Instagram,
yeah,
Instagram and Facebook, and she was getting to this point where she's like, I'm really upset these last few weeks because a lot of my posts are not, they're not getting engagement. I'm just like, listen, like, I'm not saying to not have a goal to try to increase your reach. I think there's positives with that. If you can reach people, you can touch and inspire people. I get that element, but don't rely on that for your own joy and happiness. That's crazy. I was telling her, I'm like, you need to put have your happiness and your joy come from other things. About, are you enjoying modeling? Does that bring you joy? She says, yes, it does. I'm like, stick to that.
yeah.
Stick to that. Don't stick to the metrics. These platforms are defining that for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like
Oh yeah. There's
uh,
I railed against adding followers to Twitter back in 2006. No, 7. I remember when they added the follower numbers to Twitter in 2007, I actually was quoted, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal in an article,
oh wow.
basically because they talked to me when I was at South by Southwest, and I was like, this is going to change Twitter and it's bad. And all that people are going to care about are their follower numbers now. And sure enough, my prediction from 2007, and I was actually, I don't know if you know who Robert Scoble is. I was actually talking
I've heard of them. Yeah.
smack talking him on that, because it was like kind of about him and him talking about how he loves the follower numbers. And sure enough, years later, like I know that Instagram's been experimenting with taking away like numbers and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I would just like to see them put like, just what would happen if we didn't have that social proof. And like, would we just like stuff that we would like? Would we follow people that we personally just found interesting? Like, why do we need to know that that person's popular in order to follow them, or that post is popular in order to like it? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think it's been a big problem, and there's dopamine hits. There's like all sorts of data and
Yeah.
science behind, and yeah, I know why these companies did this. These companies did this because it drives more time on the platforms.
Oh yeah, it's an
Have
addiction.
Have you found yourself
I'm guilty of it
refreshing,
too.
refresh,
I'm guilty of
refresh?
it too. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, dopamine hit. And so like, if you do not know who's liking and stuff, you do not get that dopamine hit. If you do not like look at those numbers as a measure of self-worth, like your friends, you're not getting that dopamine hit. Maybe that means you post less. Well, that's fine. Live life. Like, live
Yeah.
your
So
life.
true. Yeah. I mean, the dopamine hits I get, I'll tell you, is when I'm able to get someone on the podcast and connect like with someone like you, and you're phenomenal, and I love, for me, I get a lot of joy from this is because it's a connection. It's
Yeah.
real. I can, I know we're not face to face, but I can see you can see me, and that to me, I'm like, you know what, that's what I love, and that brings me joy, and being able to build relationships, that brings me joy. Being able to do what I love every day, and that's marketing for my company, that brings me joy, and helping people. And
Yep.
so this is what's valuable for me. This is what I love. But
Yep.
not everyone's like that.
Yep.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Well,
And
hopefully things
yeah.
change after this period of time. I feel like 2020 has been very interesting, and I feel like there is change is going to come. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening that I think it's just the beginning. And it's going to probably be a little painful for people for a while, but I feel like actually a weird sense of hope around all of this
Mhm.
stuff. Maybe I'm
Either
just
that, yeah, I think so too. Either that, or I said this to my fiance the other day. I said, "What's next is they're gonna find aliens below
yeah.
the Empire State Building or something."
Yeah.
So it's either things are gonna get a
Blow up
lot
in a big
better.
fireball,
Yeah, Godzilla's gonna, it's just it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in some very uncertain times at the moment. But I guess all we can do is have hope, and I think this was a reset on the world a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's showing that we're all connected, that we're all very similar, that we need each other, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's going to have a positive impact. We'll see.
Yeah, and then there's more important things, and they got your double soy latte order wrong, in this world to think
That's so
about.
true. Yeah. And actually, this is a perfect segue. This is really what I wanted to also ask you. With, I know we all have our struggles, obstacles that we go through, and you being an entrepreneur and business owner, you've owned multiple businesses. And were there any obstacles, Tara, or challenges that you had? And you could talk about life. I'll leave it up to you, or even your career that they were very tough, but you felt like you overcame and you made you stronger. What were some of the really tough challenges that you had in your career? You
Mm.
can talk about Truly. I'll leave that up to you. But
Yeah, it happened actually
yeah.
a few years with Truly. So as I said, it was like this accidental agency, and all of a sudden I'm in this position where I'm like trying to be CEO of like a lot of people give themselves the title of CEO. And there was a moment where I actually had to earn the title of CEO. A whole bunch of stuff had happened all at once. Like we were winding down with a few clients already. But we had some other really strong clients. But then they had a changeover. One of our biggest clients had a changeover in leadership, and their new leadership was like, I don't like this strategy. Like, this is not my idea. They wanted to go in a way different direction. So
Mhm.
they killed our contracts right there. So we were winding down with some clients. With that big client was going to be gone in a month. And then there was a bunch of like business development we were doing that just like all of a sudden, poof, it dried up. And I had staffed up earlier in the year to like, because I was feeling very optimistic and because I wasn't properly measuring like the all of the things that an agency should be measuring, which is
Right.
like full-time equivalent cost per, like da 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 da.
Yeah. Your
Um,
operating costs, your fixed costs,
Margins,
everything.
yep, all
Yep.
that. Yeah.
We've been through the exact same. But go ahead. Yeah, that's crazy.
So there I
Yeah.
was, and the rug was pulled out from under me, and yeah. So the next few months, oh man, I was like, I was devastated because I had to lay people off. I had to like, we had to make a lot of different cutbacks. We had to make some other hard decisions about things. Like everybody was in fear. And we got through it. Like it was like a 3-month period. We got through it on the other side. We gained some business. And we ended up like putting in some amazing like practices and tightening up the way that we keep track of time and like just making sure that everything, like we were tracking our margins and we had dashboards and all this stuff. Like it was just like we were, I was like, why weren't we this efficient before? I guess like
Mm.
part of me knew that I had to be before, but I didn't, like I just, it always felt like there'd be, fine, we'd be fine. And all of a sudden we weren't. And there I was, like, on the other side of this, just way stronger in understanding that process is sexy. Process is good. Process
Yeah.
will help you be better to your staff. Process will, your staff might hate process, but at the end of the day, it's for them. It's for their jobs, to protect their jobs, to really help ensure that they have security. Process will help your clients, even if your clients hate process, because it'll ensure that they get the best possible service, that we are, like, making sure budgets are staying on track. Process is, of course, really good for an agency, and it allowed us to make our margins such that a few years later we're building Phlywheel, which was sort of like one of our dreams to do, right? So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, we it's crazy that you said that, because last in earlier 2019, we went through that same thing where we had to part ways with our largest client, and it really hurt us. It was one of the I would say it was probably one of the toughest years I've ever had, and
Mm.
it was very similar to what you went through, and we had to go through the layoffs and all of that, and it really does test you. I don't think people are really prepared when they start a business. All these things you see on Facebook, I'm sure you probably stay off of it, but when you see on Facebook, you see, oh, make $1 million in next 12 months. I'm making, I have a stack of cash, 300,000 the last month. It's just all fake. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not, and instead we need to talk about, how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur, but how joyful it also is. And also how much joy it can bring to you and to
Mhm.
others. But with that being said, there's a lot of obstacles that come,
Well, and
along in the journey. So
I will also say we learn way more in our failures than we ever do in our successes. People that are like,
absolutely.
I was successful because A, B, C, D. It's like BS. No, you were
Hmm.
not. Maybe there were things that you did that led towards this, but there was also probably a lot of factors that you couldn't control. But in our failures, we learn to be smarter about, like, um, that whole, like, mitigating risk, which is a big part of the entrepreneurial life,
Yeah.
right? It's not just the glory, it's also we're risk takers, but we also have to be smart about what kind of risks to take. So
Calculated risks. Yep.
yeah.
That's all. And that's about knowing your finances and your costs and your,
Oh yeah.
if you're actually making money or if you're losing money. There's a lot that goes into it, but it takes time. We've been
I
through
did
that as
not
well.
sign up.
It's hell. It's hell.
I did not sign up for that, but hey, I'm
Yeah.
here, and actually I feel stronger because of it. So
It's good. Absolutely. No, that's great. And just to I always ask this final question on every episode, and it does have to do with your story and all the things that you've gone through, good and bad, everything that's made you stronger. But for you, Tara, how would you define your story in one word? You get to choose one word of how to define yourself. It can be your personal, your career, anything, but how would you really define your story?
um humility.
Love it.
Yeah.
Humility. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really, really good word for a business owner.
You need it. If you don't have
You
it,
need
you're
it.
gonna be screwed.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love it. That's great. Yeah. Well, Tara, it's been an honor, talking to you today. I'm so happy, and it's a great ending, or kind of ending to the Friday. It's 12:30, but I'm definitely blessed and honored to have you here and to share your story and your expertise, excuse me, and your insights. Can you tell everyone where they can find you? And actually, if you can, tell us a little bit about Phlywheel, and even truly just a little bit, and as well as where everyone can find you socially and
Yeah.
websites.
Okay. My name is Tara Hunt, and but you can find me at Miss Rogue everywhere. MISSROGUE. It's pretty much my handle across everything, whether it's on LinkedIn or Twitter. Phlywheel is spelled, which is our new product that we're doing a beta test on, and we're officially launching in July. It's how we're trying to scale services for small and mid-sized businesses because it's really hard. That's why it's so expensive to hire an agency for a small business. But we're trying to, through community content and coaching, we're creating this like community of small business professionals who need to get better at marketing and help them like not buy Facebook ads anymore. But Phlywheel is spelled with a PH, PHLY, WHEEL, and like, you know, like the 90s fly, which you'll also see in our branding. And yeah, we're Phlywheel everywhere because, hey, surprise, surprise, nobody had that name before. Laugh as you might.
Yeah, it's
and
unique.
then yeah, and then Truly is Truly Inc. Truly TRULYINC, everywhere, and that's that's our services based branch, and we can really only scale now to do like bigger bigger projects, bigger long-term projects. That's why we wanted to create Phlywheel, so that we could help people, small businesses in the near term at scale. So.
Perfect. Well, Tara, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to continue. Yeah, absolutely. And look forward to continue connecting and building the, relationship. And I think a lot of people are going to find lots of value from this and be inspired by your story and be inspired from everything you've gone through and all the knowledge that you have to share. So I really appreciate you. And thank you for being here again. So
yeah. Thank you, Michael. Talk soon.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening. And this is your host, Michael Giorgio, on Tales from the Pros. And until next time, thanks, guys.
Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow our social media. There are links somewhere around here. But we really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the support. And I'm going to be giving you awesome content continuously. And we look forward to seeing you soon.